Hello, everyone. Welcome all to Community Power, Making It Real. Many of you will have attended Stronger Things back in May, which was this amazing festival of community power in the Guildhall in London. Welcome back. This is a follow-up event to the conference. And to those of you who weren't able to make it, where were you? You really must come next year. You can register now, June the 4th. Registration is already open. It's an amazing event. But welcome to this session. It's really great to see so many people on the call, over 140 people here. I think it just shows the continuing excitement and energy around community power as a concept, but also what the energy that was generated by Stronger Things back in May. Also really exciting to see such an enormous range of backgrounds of people joining the session. Looking through the attendance list, we've got people from local government, people from health sector, people from voluntary sector, people from community groups, and people from central government as well. So I think this is going to be a really powerful conversation. I think the more people you can get into an event with a wide range of backgrounds, the more you have to share and learn from each other. So I'm sure it's going to be absolutely fascinating and very useful session. I also want to welcome TPXimpact. We worked really closely with them on organising Stronger Things. They're really close partners of New Local. So we're really pleased that they are working with us on this session. And indeed, they are going to be leading this session. So I am really pleased to welcome Tom and Charlotte from TPXimpact, and I'll hand over to them now so they can introduce and lead the rest of the session. Tom, Charlotte, over to you.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks, Adam, for your introduction. It's great to see so many people here today. We're really excited about this session, which is about community power, making it real. My name is Tom Cheever. I'm a community engagement and participation manager at TPXimpact, and I'm just going to give Charlotte an opportunity to introduce herself as well.
Hi, everyone. I'm Charlotte Obijaku. I'm the Deliberative Democracy Officer at TPXimpact, working in the same team as Tom. I was there in May, so I might have seen some of you there.
Cool. And so just very briefly, who are TPXimpact? We're an agency that helps all sorts of organizations, but particularly public bodies and third sector groups, to build a better future for people, places and planet. And we try to use a range of different tools that help you move into the future with citizens to shape places and public services. And that includes community engagement, service design, digital transformation, and deliberative democracy tools. So we're really a partner for your organizations to help them grow and change in a way that allows citizens to have more power and places to shape the things that matter to them. And so this morning, we're going to be doing three things. We're going to have a little bit of time to kind of recap on what we mean by community power, and this will cover some of the stuff that we talked about in our session at Stronger Things. Then we're really excited to be able to share with you lots and lots of stories of people that are making community power real in all sorts of different ways. And we'll introduce them all to everybody, and you'll have the chance to choose a breakout group where you can go into a deep dive on one of those topics, depending on what you're interested in or what resonates most with you or your organization. And then before we leave, we want to give you the chance to kind of share a few of your aspirations and commitments to taking action. And as we take this session forward, we're doing it in the spirit of openness and collaboration. And we want you to use this as an opportunity to find stuff that inspires you, makes connections, learn, but also share some of the things that you know. We're not the experts in everything here. We want to create a space where we can all learn from each other. And Stronger Things was brilliant. And so for those of you who weren't at our session, we're just going to spend a couple of minutes now just reminding ourselves and make sure that we're all on the same page about the sorts of things that we discussed at that session and our understanding of what community power means. So I'll just hand over to Charlotte for that.
Thanks, Tom. Great. So community power was the theme of Stronger Things back in May, if you were there, and the guiding principle that binds together all the things you hear about today, and I'm sure that you do in your everyday work and practice. But it's helpful to be clear about what exactly community power is. So we see community power as a wide range of policies, practices, and approaches that accept that the challenges of the 21st century demand a fundamental shift in how we treat people and run public services, that treat people as active citizens rather than passive service users or individual customers, give people the power to shape the places where they live and the services that they use, as well as recognize the skills and talents within communities and their ability to identify and respond to the challenges they face. So you hopefully see some, if not all of these points in the case studies that we'll hear from shortly. Next slide, please. And community power is something that can exist to varying degrees in all places. The amount and quality depends on how much of the following is taking place. So devolution, deliberative, and participatory approaches to decision-making are adopted when community power happens, when community power is present. Co-production, community commissioning, and collaborative approaches to design and delivery of public services are practiced. And finally, funding, assets, resources, and capacity building support are provided, adequately provided. Next slide, please. Thank you. So we're now going to hear from these case studies, these partners that have worked with us, that have been doing work in their communities, just to hear about how they made community power happen.
Excellent. And the idea is that these are real projects in real places, some of which are completed, some of which people are in the middle of the work now. So we're really pleased to be able to get that window into work that's going on. And we find that learning from people that are actually in the midst of practice is most useful. So we're going to hear from each project for about 5 minutes. To give you a sense of what they were working on, the challenges they faced or what they've overcome. And then after we've heard from all 5, you'll get the chance to choose one of those projects to go into a deep dive with. So listen to all of them and then have a think about which thing is resonating with you most. So first up, let's hear from Bristol City Council and the Community Resilience Fund. And I'm going to stop sharing so that you can put your slides up.
Great. Robin, are you able to share our slides? Is that okay? Great, thank you. So hello everyone, my name's Ellie Stevens and I work at Bristol City Council. I manage a team called the Community Resources Team, and we are responsible for projects all around resourcing the voluntary and community sector. So that's with grant funding, but also we work on social action programmes, volunteering, providing brokerage between organisations and volunteers and things like that. The project that we're here to talk about today is the Community Resilience Fund, which I've been working on for the last 2 years. And I'm here with my colleague, Robin Taylor, who's going to introduce herself too.
Hi, yes, hopefully you can hear me. My mic can be a bit temperamental. Yep, I am the Community Resilience Fund project manager, and I've just been working alongside Ellie to deliver the project.
Great, thanks, Robin. So we're going to tell you a bit about what the Community Resilience Fund is, and we're also going to share with you three things, that were innovative from our perspective about the project, to give you a sense of what we were excited about, what we thought was kind of new, and what was a learning curve for us. In this presentation, we're not going to share much about the challenges. We're going to give you the innovations first, but if you're interested to hear more about how it was in practice and the kind of challenges that we had to overcome, then please do come to our breakout session. Back to you, Robin, to introduce the project.
Yeah, so what is the Community Resilience Fund? Well, it's a £4 million capital grant fund to invest in the recovery and resilience of the voluntary and community sector in Bristol. And while it's doing that, we're also wanted to grow the power of communities experiencing the greatest inequity. And it was an opportunity for us to test and learn from the participatory and deliberative decision making at a local level, which we hope to be able to build on as a council in the future.
Okay, great. So I'm going to kick off sharing the first sort of area of innovation. So as Robin said, this was a participatory grant making process. It was not the first time that we've done anything in this realm, but it was the first time that we did a participatory process that was fully committed to co-design, in that every aspect of the programme was co-designed with the partners that we worked with. So between May and November 2022, we worked with voluntary and community sector partners and councillors alongside each other from across the city to co-design our approach to the fund. We also co-designed the application process and the decision-making process. So it was all three elements that we worked on together. We and partners had agreed that a participatory approach felt the most appropriate in this instance, and that it was a good opportunity to trial and build on the work done by the Bristol Citizens Assembly that had happened the previous year. We worked closely with TPXimpact, who facilitated several in-person and online workshops to kind of teach everyone about participatory approaches, introduce people to the ideas of deliberative decision-making, and collectively we agreed on our approach to the fund. This was refined then by a smaller group of people, a working group made up of 8 voluntary and community sector partners from diverse organisations and backgrounds. And we worked through the application forms, all the paperwork, everything from kind of comms and videos and marketing that we were going to do, to our recruitment process for the decision makers who would be involved, to the decision-making methodology itself. So it really was a fully co-designed process. And I think what was key to this for us was that we were really open and transparent throughout the process. So we were really open to input from other people, to other people shaping how this fund worked. We did have some parameters, which we obviously had to be really transparent about from the start, in that this is public money and it had a purpose that was set out and agreed by our cabinet. So we had to kind of be open and transparent about that. But anywhere that there was space for a collective decision and collective design, we were really committed to that.
Thanks, Ellie. And another area which we touched on in the previous slide that we wanted to focus on was equity. So we know that exclusion and inequity undermine community resilience, which is why this fund was specifically for organisations that are based and work in areas that experience the greatest deprivation. So part of the 4 million was also earmarked specifically for organisations working with equalities communities citywide. And in terms of the decisions themselves, they were made by communities that they would affect. So we had 7 different groups made up of councillors, residents and BCSE representatives from relevant neighbourhoods or communities of interest. And the aim was to recruit groups that were broadly representative of Bristol's population. And we worked really hard to meaningfully target and involve different groups of people. And in the decision-making process itself, we really put an emphasis on equity and built that into the key considerations that we developed, and that all of the projects were kind of assessed or reviewed through. So everyone watched an introductory video on equity that we developed with partners to understand why equity was relevant and important to the fund. And that one of those key considerations for the decision makers was around how projects elevated equalities communities, so a specific focus on that.
Thanks, Robin. And yeah, the final thing we wanted to briefly talk about was that this was a new decision-making process for us, but also we think quite an innovative way of making decisions, full stop. So when we co-designed our approach, we and our partners were presented with lots of options about how we might make decisions collectively with residents and councillors. We looked at things like using scoring matrix, community voting, and lots of other options. But we decided that what would work best for us as a collective was a consensus-based approach to decision-making, using a set of principles or key considerations to review the applications that we'd had for the fund against. That meant that people were really grappling with kind of new concepts and having open discussions, deliberations about how they felt about the proposals that they were reading. So it allowed people to share their thoughts and opinions in a structured way. It also enabled meaningful discussions and for people's voices to all be heard. So we didn't have a kind of a process where people needed to put their hand up and put their head above the parapet and vote. We worked in small breakout groups. We collected opinions in that way, and then that was shared collectively as a wider group, and it kind of built up that picture of how people were feeling about different proposals. We really saw residents' confidence grow through that process and their agency as the sessions progressed. This was a pilot project for us, and it helped us to grow our understanding of participatory and deliberative decision making. So it was a big learning curve for us as a team as well. And we really hope to continue to build our practice along with partners and the rest of the city so that communities can take more of a role in this kind of decision making in the future. Thank you very much for listening. I hope that you found it interesting, and we hope to see some of you in our Q&A session in the breakout rooms.
Thanks, Ellie and Robin. Let's hear from our next project, which is from Barnet Council in London, the Citizens Assembly on Climate Change. So over to you, Yogita and Ellen.
Thanks very much, Tom. I'm going to share my screen now. Just bear with me. Right. So good morning. I'm Yogita. I'm the Assistant Director for Sustainability at Barnet Council. This morning, we're going to talk to you a little bit about our Citizens Assembly and Young People's Assembly, which we're really, really excited about. So let me just see how I move my screen on. Bear with me. So very, very exciting. So we had a change of administration last May where we declared a climate and biodiversity emergency. So it meant that we were beginning to do things a lot further and faster than ever before, with a new target to become a net zero council by 2030 and as a borough by 2042, or as soon as possible, basically. So what we did was we embarked on delivering a citizens' assembly, something we'd never ever done before, but we did it really, really quickly. So within the first 6 months, we decided to recruit 40 participants across the borough, which very much were reflective of our borough demographics. But when we launched our Citizens' Assembly, we also launched our new Barnet Zero campaign. And this had a massive impact on our recruitment because we actually had a 5% application rate, which we were told by Sortition Foundation was a lot higher than that they've ever seen before, especially for face-to-face workshops. The adults met for 30 hours over a series of assemblies over 3 months, and they were evenings and weekends. So we thought that was really good. And those 40 participants were really part of all of the decision making all the way through. We worked with TPXimpact as our delivery partner. What was really innovative was that we actually decided to do a young people's assembly at the same time. And we had 20 young people from across the borough that met for 18 hours during the same time as the adults. So basically, we had 60 participants aged from 12 to 80 who were part of our assembly. And they answered the question of, Barnet has declared a climate emergency. What more can we do to get Barnet more sustainable now and in the future? And it was very much about that word together. So how do we together deliver a citizens' assembly that is sort of makes us all part of the delivery, not just the council? And we were very keen to do that. So in terms of our deliberative process, as most of you will know, there was a learning phase, but in that learning phase, we did some quite innovative things. So we had community groups that came in and they told us what they were already doing, some other things that they were thinking about doing. So actually participants could see how much was already going on in the borough. We also did something called a strategy room, and this was a new innovative process that UCL and Nesta were designing. And that was about sort of taking participants on the journey with us, and they were part of the process and they were seeing what certain decision making could lead to. We then had a deliberation phase, so very similar to Bristol, where people came in the room and they talked about things, they talked about a vision, they started thinking about what that actually means in delivery. And then when it came to recommendations, one of our key principles was equity, fairness, and transparency. So all the way along, we have really kept this as an open process with having share and learn sessions all the way through, so people could drop in and out at any point and see what was going on. We also had a website that was kept updated with all of the conversations, not the detail, but what was being discussed, what were some of the ideas coming out. But at that third phase, we actually brought the adults and young people together. So we delivered a set of recommendations that was across the whole piece. It wasn't a set of recommendations for adults, and it wasn't a set of recommendations for young people. It was one set of recommendations from our assembly. So today we'd really like to discuss with you like how we embedded community participation in our delivery without actually passing the problem on. So you're really living that world of doing it together, how we kind of made deliberative democracy tangible, and how we're sharing our learning. So we're really keen that no one has to reinvent the wheel. We've already done it. And then how we're going to take the next phase of our work in terms of ownership of ideas and actions. So how we act as an enabler and a connector in our borough to really help people sort of take us on the journey with us. So that's our pitch. If you'd like to join us, come into our breakout room. I'm going to stop sharing. Tom, over to you.
Thanks so much. So we've heard two really interesting examples there of new approaches to decision making and sharing power with residents, which is a key part of community power. In one case, Bristol distributing millions of pounds of public money, and in the case of Barnet, responding to one of the local authority's biggest challenges. So if those aspects appeal to you, please make sure that you join those breakout groups. But now we're going to move on to our next project. And we're going to hear from Lauren Hansey-Gordon at TPXimpact to tell us a little bit about co-design and storytelling.
Thank you. What a brilliant kind of 2x to follow. So thank you both so much for what you've shared. What I'm going to share here is actually just going to be a little bit of a teaser. So I'm actually going to keep the juiciest bits for the breakout room. But what I would like to do is share 3 ways that we catalysed community power through co-design alongside storytelling and working with the council to do that. So the example that I want to share in here, we recruited and supported 8 residents who were experiencing or at risk of experiencing poverty. And we supported them to join a fairness team, so working alongside councillors, council staff and voluntary sector staff. And so over 3 months, the residents really helped the team to research and define the causes of poverty, and then work together to make decisions about what needed to change and how. And so we used co-design along with storytelling to really kind of centre the resident experiences, to understand how poverty affects people's daily lives, and then to develop better solutions that are kind of meeting the residents' needs. So the 3 ways that we catalyse community power were really about listening to the people who are often marginalised but most affected by decisions, so a sense of empowering. And then there was a sense of levelling, so it was building empathy and new perspectives on what the problem was that we wanted to solve. And then using all of that as a foundation for co-design and aiming to co-design better solutions. So that's just a little teaser. I'm going to go into each of those things in a little bit more depth in the breakout room, and there'll be an opportunity to kind of get into the detail around how we did that.
Thank you, Lauren. And next up, can we hear from Kate to speak about West Yorkshire Fair Work Charter?
Hello. Yes, of course. Wow, Lauren, that's a bit tricksy. Keeping all the goodies for later. Hi everybody. Thanks ever so much for the chance to share our exciting story as well. We're coming really from a West Yorkshire perspective. It's very much about work and fair work, and how the process we went through in terms of developing a charter, of which I'll speak a little bit more in a moment. How in the process of doing that, we actually focused on being braver rather than safe. I think a number of the metro mayors around the country have been exploring what a Fair Work Charter looks like, and so there was a little bit of precedent going on there, but we decided to plunge into making something that was really relevant and bespoke for West Yorkshire. So let me introduce myself. I'm Kate Hainsworth. I'm Chief Exec at Leeds Community Foundation Give Bradford. So 2 chunks of West Yorkshire. West Yorkshire is a pretty wide area which has a range of life experiences. Some of those are very much focused on people who don't have an awful lot of possibilities and are facing pay or work opportunities which are extremely limited. It's also fair to say West Yorkshire is primarily populated by small to medium-sized enterprises, so smaller businesses. So with that knowledge in mind, I was asked actually to chair this piece of work by our incoming new mayor for the area, Tracy Brabin. So she's the first mayor we've had. This was in May 2021. And one of her 10 manifesto pledges included setting up a Fair Work Charter. I'm not sure she had a particularly clear notion of exactly how that would operate, but as I said, given that there were other charters around, I think she had a bit of an idea that it would probably look a little bit like them. But of course, we were all just coming out of COVID and there were an awful lot of things going on. And so when I was asked to join and steer this work, it seemed to me really, really important that we learn the lessons that we'd been taught by the pandemic. And so the lessons that I'd been learning while working at the foundation. So the Community Foundation is, whether you're familiar with them or not, I don't know, but it's a particular kind of community organisation because we face 2 ways. We face into communities, deep into our local communities, and build relational grant making and partnerships with those community groups over the long term. So we're very much about long-term relational grant making, but also building projects and programs together. So that's very much built into our DNA. But we also face people who want to put money into that local grassroots work. So we have very close relationships with businesses as well. And I think it was in the context of that experience that I had things to bring to the table. So what happened? We assembled an amazing cross-section of a steering group. We assembled an amazing steering group. And I'm just going to whiz through the kind of people that were on that steering group, just to give you an idea of how broad we needed to be, because it was people from the unions, from the TUC, from the GMB, people from West Yorkshire Chamber of Commerce, people from the Federation of Small Businesses, academics who were part of all the universities, people from the NHS, people from local authorities, CIPD, but most importantly, from my point of view, also people who were coming from the community aspect. So we had Wellsprings together, and actually Tom joined us from his previous role in terms of his work with citizens, and myself from LCF, the local community foundation. And so we had a room full of people who were really quite polarized. And look, in fact, some of our first exercises, which Tom led brilliantly, was actually positioning people in the room as to where they stood on certain questions about fair work. And they were literally at the 2 ends of the room, 2 opposite ends of the room. So in the end, we decided to go for a bolder option, which took a bit longer. But if you'd like to hear more about it, please join our session to hear more about that journey.
Thank you, Kate. So in those last 2 examples, we've got new approaches to designing and developing public services or responses to challenges that really center, the users or the people with experience of the challenge at the heart of developing them. So in one case, it's responding to the cost of living crisis and developing a team of residents to co-design and tell stories about how the council should respond. And in the other, developing a new framework for how work in a city region should be fair. So if you're interested in those sorts of issues, please make sure that you join the co-design deep dive with TPXimpact or the West Yorkshire Fair Work Charter breakout group with Kate. But now moving on to our final two examples. So let's hear first from Kenise at Citizens UK to talk about South London Listens.
Tom, thank you ever so much for inviting me. It's great to be here. So my name is Kenise and I've just been appointed as Head of Health Organising at Citizens UK. I have another role as well at Rethink Mental Illness. So I'm doing a combined role. And Citizens UK is the largest civil alliance in the UK, and it's made up mainly of churches, mosques, faith organisations, universities, colleges, and many other civic institutions. And what we do is community organising. It's a particular methodology which we transported from America about 35 years ago. And so we do this piece of work all over the country in 17 different what we call chapters. But I'm talking to you in this 5 minutes about South London Listens, a very particular project that's grown during COVID. So this is just one of the hundreds we do. But in this particular project, we worked into a partnership with the integrated care system in South East London. So this is made up of about 5 different NHS hospitals and about 7 different councils. And at the heart of it, we co-produced in the partnership a task force, a steering group, a core team made up of these gigantic institutions. But the two things that we hit out on for me was that they had senior oversight. So they were turning up, the execs were turning up for these in the chairs, but the agenda was being set very much by the community. So power was in the room, but the power to decide and to control and to move some of that decision-making was in the hands of the community, i.e. us. So in the first round during COVID, we listened to 6,000 communities. And in the breakout, I'll talk to you about how do you do that gigantic mass listening? How does that happen? So this time round, we're right in the middle of repeating the cycle with 4,000 communities. We're 2,000 in, and by the end of September, we need to hit our 4,000 target. So very much in the methodology is listening to communities. That's where we start our work. And then what we do is create asks out of them. We take gigantic big problems and decipher them into actual asks where you can kind of normally polarize a target and act on it. But in this partnership, that's really, really challenging us, and we're adjusting that and co-producing that methodology. So it's groundbreaking and new work, and there's a lot of tension in the work. So we're learning fast, and this is the second time we're doing this. So we've learned from previous. But when we did it during COVID, the so what of this work, like why would you do that? Why would you set up this gigantic task force? And what's the purpose of listening to 6,000 communities? We've listened hundreds of times before. What's different now? And the difference really is the way you slice those big problems into actions, and then you co-produce and you get the people in a room, and you do that in a public assembly. So you've heard assemblies before, mentioned in the room. That's what we do. That's our preferred out there public assemblies. When we did it during COVID, the following sort of things emerged. We set up 60 Be Well hubs grounded in the community for NHS work and council work. We asked the integrated care system to become a living wage accredited institution, so it's paying a fair wage to its employees. We set up a digital waiting room for young people with mental health because they were the main problem was just didn't know what was going on. So digital workshop came out of that. Another brilliant campaign that was born from it was safe surgeries. Migrants, refugees just could not register for a GP access. So we created that campaign with a little bit of training. It didn't require money. It required a little bit of training and fixing the system. Our focus has very much been about stories and finding the leaders and not doing for them what they can do for themselves. That's our iron rule in organising. And so, yes, data is important, but the focus very much is let's build your institutions, let's build the ways of working, let's build the leaders. And in the workshop, what we want to do is dive deeper into what we call an anchor program. So we did it lots of communities before. Anchor brings in Bromley Council, Bexley Council, Croydon Council, Southwark Council, Lambeth Council, Lewisham Council, Greenwich Council, and then throws in also Guy's St Thomas NHS, King's College University NHS, Lewisham NHS, Oxley NHS, Maudsley Slam NHS as well. So there is now, the second time we're repeating this exercise, we're right in the middle of that anchor work. I'm the anchor lead, and it's gigantic, and there's a lot of ways we're trying to kind of cut that tension of working together. So when we break out into the workshop, I want to go through the timeline of where we are right in the beginning of that timeline of 6,000 listening. But I'm going to run you through what happens up to December. So how do you cut that and get it into that action plan, impact report? How do you get from there to there in about 4 or 5 months? And a little bit maybe more about accountability assembly. And we will really get into the listening tool. It's at the heart of our work. How do you listen? How do you do the type form? How do you engage? How do you train anchor institutions to do that? And also, if we've got time, I want to share the themes that have come out from the South London Listens. It's really interesting: housing, cost of living, youth services, etc., etc. I want to share the outcomes and then just give you a moment to kind of reflect. So that workshop's going to be really interactive. We're going to run a listening campaign inside that room, and then we're going to share the insights. That's my 5 minutes up. So hopefully see you there.
Thank you, Cadiz. And we have one more presentation, and this is from Anne-Marie and Jimmy on the Brilliant Club's Parent Power project.
Lovely. Hello, everyone. My name's Anne-Marie and I'm the CEO of the Brilliant Club, and I'm here to talk to you about our programme Parent Power. The Brilliant Club is a nationwide education charity. In fact, we work in every local authority in England and Wales, and we're all about helping low-income children make it to really highly selective universities. Now, I've worked in this area all my life of trying to help kids who don't have the best start in life really flourish. And I have to admit, there was an area that over all of my career I struggled with and I was failing at, and that was engaging the parents of the children that we worked with. And actually back in 2017, I had a bit of a reckoning with myself, because we know that engaging mums and dads and families around education is a really important part to reducing educational disadvantage. So I was absolutely determined to try and crack this problem of how we engage mums and dads with their kids' education. Now, it turns out I didn't need to look very far for a bit of inspiration. This is my mum, Judy, on the left-hand side of your screens. Now, just to give you a bit of context, I'm from Doncaster. I grew up in a pit village. My mum's disabled. I always looked after her whilst I was growing up. My dad's a lorry driver. I went to a school that was in special measures. I made it through to university. And 15 years after I've graduated, my mum, Judy, who you can see on your screens, is still the person you go to in our village if you want your son or daughter or grandchild to head off to university. In fact, you often find her in the veg aisle of our local Asda. So it's become a hotbed of university information, advice and guidance. So you find Judy and Judy says, listen, here's how it works. Or do you know what? I'll put you in contact with our Anne-Marie and she can help you with that. Or the Brilliant Club can give you a hand with that. So my mum is almost this person that is so well known in our community for being the person who can help you get to where you want to go. So thanks to Judy, I decided to explore community organising, because I thought what I need to do is create hundreds of Judys in different communities where higher education access is not as good as it should be. So back in 2017, working with Citizens UK, we set up our first chapter of Parent Power in South London, based around the university. And we spoke to local mums and dads and said, what do you want for your children? What do you dream of for your kids? What was your own experience of education? And how can we work together to make sure your children have a really, really great education and a great life to follow that? And it was amazing. In fact, it was so amazing, we decided to try and deliver the model in a different context. And so we took it up to Oldham and proved that the model worked outside of London. And so you can see on your screens here, our Parent Power chapter in London and then our Parent Power chapter in Oldham. And these mums and dads were looking at the barriers that their children were facing and taking them down themselves. And so all of our Parent Power groups will identify the things that are locally a problem for their children really flourishing and work together to overcome them. And each of these mums and dads becomes a champion or an expert in higher education, in things like student finance, and they can talk to other mums and dads locally and help them with some of those things they might be having questions about or wondering about. So we decided 2 years ago to bring parent power to the Brilliant Club. And since then, our parent power chapters have been flourishing. In fact, we've got 10 in the different locations you can see on the screen just here. And at this moment, I'm going to hand over to the man who made that happen. That's Jimmy. So Jimmy's going to tell you a bit more about Parent Power's growth.
Thanks, Anne-Marie. So my name is Jimmy Pickering. I'm Director of Communities at the Brilliant Club. And as Anne-Marie said, it's been really exciting to see Parent Power grow over the last couple of years. We've now established 10 Parent Power chapters across the UK, each one in partnership with a local organisation, and employing a community organiser to work with local parents to build parents' knowledge and confidence around education, but also to work with them to create change, as Anne-Marie was talking about then. Next slide, please, Anne-Marie. So just to pick up on two examples of this, two of our Parent Powers are in partnership with local authorities. So in Knowsley, parents are campaigning to bring A-level provision back to the borough. At the moment, it's the only borough in the UK where you can't study A-levels. It's quite a shocking fact. So they've worked with the local council to feed into their post-16 education review and build a campaign to take to national decision makers that can create change on that. And then in Oldham, which is where I'm from, so it's been amazing to be a part of this. Parents are campaigning to improve mental health provision for their children. They see that as the biggest barrier to educational progress in the town. And they're working with Oldham Council to shape the provision they offer in new family hubs that they've set up across the borough. So yeah, a couple of great examples there of how we work with parents and with local authorities. And in the breakout session, which we're hoping to see plenty of you in, you can learn more about that, and we'll discuss some lessons learned, and there'll be lots of chances to ask questions about the model as well. Just to finish on this quote from Rahila in Oldham. So next slide, please, Anne-Marie. So Rahila is a parent in Oldham who's been part of the group since 2019. Has actually now become the community organiser for the group because of that experience. And I just think this quote about her experience of being part of Parent Power during the pandemic really sums up a lot about what Parent Power is about. It's that sense of community. It's about parents supporting each other, but also working together to create change on issues they care about. So as Rahila says here, that kind of mental health provision.
Thank you everyone for coming along and listening to us. At TPXimpact, we really want to be partners to help spread community power and allow organizations to really embed it and find practical ways to make it tangible. So if you are doing something or planning to do something and you're looking for a bit of support, please do not hesitate to contact us, and please reach out using the contact details here. Thanks very much. I'll hand back to you, Adam.
Thank you very much, Tom. I'm just going to finish off with another plug for Stronger Things. If you like the spirit of today, that interaction, finding out about all the really great practical community-powered stuff happening across the country, then really do sign up to Stronger Things. Registration's open 4th of June next year. Which very finally say thank you so much to Tom, to Charlotte, to all our brilliant speakers and initiatives. Thanks to TPXimpact for their support and for being such brilliant partners, but particularly thanks to all of you. You've all been great, really participated. Have a fantastic day. Enjoy the rest of your day.